I hate Vegas. And yet, here I am in my hot car driving through a blistering desert to the very city I loathe. I hate the place so much, I'm a harsh judge of people who go there for fun. That guy in the green Honda with the Romney Ryan bumper sticker, he's going for the lap dances. The woman in the tan Saturn with the oxidized roof and the dangling headlight, she's clearly a compulsive gambler. And the older couple in the Winnebago, they're going to Vegas because the only time they have satisfying sex is after watching the Blue Man Group. Most people go to Vegas to get lucky, get wasted, or get laid. Not me. I go to hang out with two frail old people. Aunt Bee and Uncle Gene are a childless couple who spent most of their married lives in LA. They moved when they were retired because they could afford to do something in Vegas that they could never quite swing in California, and it was something they had both dreamed about their entire lives. They could buy a brand new house. I hate Vegas because something changed when they moved there. My aunt and uncle had been social and friendly and outgoing in LA, but in Vegas, they didn't make any connections. 25 years in the same house, going to the same church, and volunteering at the same museum, and they don't have any friends there, not one. I hate Vegas because it's the place where Aunt Bee and Uncle Gene stepped into a life of aching loneliness and boredom. But I'll tell you what, even bored and lonely, my aunt and uncle are always themselves. The first time I visited them after they moved, they told me about the time there was a flash flood on their street. I asked my aunt how high the water went.
You see that rock right there? The water came right up to that rock.
Jesus, Aunt Bee, that's close. You must have been so scared.
I don't scare easy.
My impression of my aunt's voice is spot on. She was born and raised in the Bronx by a bunch of crass Italians. She's loud, she's shrill, and she's curt. Here's my uncle.
How you doing, Frankie? How much money you got in your pockets? You want to play some cards?
My impression of my uncle's voice sucks. I always make him sound like a creepy child molester from New York. He isn't creepy, he isn't from New York, and he's certainly not a child molester. He is a backslapping, glad-handing, slightly cheesy guy. He likes to gamble and tell jokes. He spends an hour a day grooming his hair and his beard, and if you ever want to make him really happy, all you have to do is tell him he looks like Kenny Rogers. Here's what you really need to know about my uncle. He's kind, and he's sweet, and he'll do anything for the people he loves, so long as it doesn't mess his coiffure. Like I said, I can't do my uncle's voice for shit, but it doesn't matter because my uncle isn't talking anymore, which is not to say he's silent. Now my uncle sounds exactly like this. In late December 2015, my uncle developed a kind of pneumonia associated with Parkinson's disease. He spent weeks and weeks getting a little better and much worse, a little better and much worse, a little better and much, much worse. Now I'm driving after bouncing between hospitals and nursing homes, my uncle ended up in hospice. So now I'm driving to Vegas to help him shuffle off this mortal coil and hold my aunt's hand while she watches him do it. But what do dying people need? What do the people who love them need? And do I have those things to give? I fucking hate Vegas. I drive straight to hospice. My uncle is stretched out on the bed. He's 6'2" and down to about 100 pounds. Maybe less. His Kenny Rogers hair and beard have thinned to wisps. His eyes are closed, but the lower lids have gone slack and show quarter moons of white. There's an oxygen tube in his nose. He's hooked up to an IV, but he's not getting any fluids, just morphine. His head is back, and his mouth is open. He doesn't ask how much money I have in my pocket. He doesn't ask if I want to play cards, and he doesn't tell any jokes. All he does is this. So, Uncle Gene's on the bed, inching his way to his final exit. Aunt Bee's sitting a few feet away. She sees me and says,
"Why didn't you call to say you'd be late?"
I said I would be here about noon.
"And what time is it now?"
10 after.
"I'm not saying you have to punch a clock, but people worry."
Oh, my aunt. She settles in on Uncle Gene's right. She settles in on Uncle Gene's left, and I settle in on his right. I slide my hand under his. His fingers are on top of mine, as light and fragile as a bird's. After a while, my aunt says,
"He had the most beautiful blue eyes."
Until she said those words, I did not realize my uncle had blue eyes.
"We made it to 54 years together, but we ain't gonna make 55.
She's right. They won't. We spend the rest of the day sitting with him. We talk about important stuff and silly stuff. The entire time, Uncle Gene breathes in that strange way, breath after breath after breath. His room faces west. The sun sets around 5:30, and it is beautiful. There are pinks and reds and golds and purples. My aunt and I look out the window. She says,
"Let's call it a day." When he was in the hospital, I hated to leave. Didn't think anyone would pay attention to my poor Gene. Here, I don't mind leaving, because they take such good care.
and she's right. They take really good care. When I arrived the next morning, my uncle is getting a massage. He's still stretched out on his bed. His head is still back and his mouth is still open. His eyes are still closed except for the lower lids, which have gone slack. He's pretty much the same, but there is a handsome massage therapist rubbing his neck and his shoulders and the back of his head. After the massage, my aunt leans over my uncle's bed and says,
"Good morning, Gene. How are you today?" Oh, I wish he would give a little smile, a wink, some little sign that he hears me.
"Don't worry, he hears you." Everyone on this floor hears you. We take up our places. Me on his right, Aunt B on his left. Everything is pretty much like it was, only not exactly. Sometimes when my uncle inhales, his head tugs a little bit to the right, and when he exhales, he makes a very soft sigh, like this. Aunt B, his breathing is different.
You know, all our family came over from the old country. They came over in steerage, the bottom of a boat. Can you imagine? They got here and they didn't know nobody, didn't have no jobs, no education, left everything, came to a whole different country. Would you believe Aunt Jenny got a job working as a seamstress that first week?
The morning continues like this. My aunt talking across my uncle's bed to me. telling me stories about people from the old country. After a while, a nurse comes in, Gabby, a pleasant enough lady who's told us more than we want to know about her son's addiction and how Jesus saved her family. I help Gabby rock Uncle Gene onto his side so she can wash the back of his spindly legs, his spindly arms, and his rickety torso. Uncle Gene's breathing has lost its rhythm. It goes quick breath, pause, long breath, sigh, quick breath, pause, sigh, quick breath. After Gabby finishes with Uncle Gene, Aunt Bee and I move over to the windows so Gabby can wash Uncle Gene's front with a little privacy. Aunt Bee, his breathing is really strange. I think it's going to be soon.
You don't know that. You are not a medical professional.
She's right. I'm not a medical professional. I don't know. Except I do. After Uncle Gene's sponge bath, me and Aunt Bee go back to our places.
Aunt Jenny and Uncle Vince, they lived in that apartment on 215th Street for 40 years, rent controlled, $50 a month. And they couldn't figure out why the landlord didn't want to fix the sink.
Quick breath, pause, gasp, long breath, sigh, quick breath.
You know, you would never have guessed it, because Aunt Jenny was so shy, but she was a tiger. Once she was in the lobby of a building, and some kid tried to steal her purse. You remember those big purses she used to carry? Well, she hits him with it. The kid runs away, and she runs after him, hitting him, cut his scalp and everything. I almost felt sorry for the poor kid. But I tell you what, nobody bothered her after that.
Quick breath, long breath, pause, quick breath, sigh.
Sometimes I feel like those people didn't get no credit for what they did. All the risks they took, all the things they faced. Who's going to remember them after I'm gone? Aunt Jenny, Uncle Vince, Uncle Nazio, Aunt Vincencia, Aunt Antoinette. Who's going to remember them?
And then Uncle Gene sounds like this. A minute passes. Then another minute.
I guess that's the way of the world. Everyone gets forgotten.
Aunt Bee. He's gone.
What? Don't say that, Frankie. Why would you say that?
He's not breathing.
Go get somebody. Go get somebody. Go get somebody.
It takes two nurses, a stethoscope, and a surprisingly long time for them to declare what is pretty obvious. The nurses leave my aunt and I with the body. I put my arm around her, and I get as close to her as I can. The chair she's in makes it awkward as hell, but it's the least I can do. My aunt cries and weeps, and her nose runs like a faucet. She looks at my uncle and she says,
"Boy, Gene, you really did it to me this time. You really did it to me this time. Oh, I'm all for shit and for shimmel. Oh, you really did it. You really... Oh."
And then she says,
"I have lived too long."
I don't say anything. I just sit with my arm around her and hand her a clean tissue when she needs it. After a long time, an hour, maybe longer, my aunt needs, we leave. My aunt needs someone to lean on as we walk through the hallways and out to my car. When we get to her house, my aunt says, I gotta be busy. I gotta be busy, Frankie. I gotta be busy, only I don't know what to do. I think we should eat something.
Good idea. What do you want?
Do you have any soup?
Oh, soup!
I'm thinking we would open a can. Nothing doing. My aunt pulls chicken wings out of the freezer. She pulls carrots, celery, tomatoes, and an onion out of the fridge. It takes her about an hour to make the best chicken noodle soup I have ever tasted in my life from scratch. We take our time eating because there's no reason to rush. Afterward, we'll start making calls and arrangements, but that will come later. For now, all we do is eat soup. My aunt sits beside me, hunched and fragile. Her knuckles are swollen with arthritis, so the spoon is a little clumsy in her hand. She just lost her husband, the man she slept with almost every night for most of her life. Her aching boredom and loneliness certainly aren't going to get better now. The thought of her all alone in this horrible place where no one knows her, no one cares about her, no one even smiles at her. I really fucking hate Vegas. What is she going to need tomorrow? What is she going to need next week? The week after that? Next month? Next year? I don't know. But I know what she needs in the first few hours after Uncle Gene dies. She needs someone to make soup for her. She needs someone to think it's delicious. That's something I can do for her. That's something I can manage.
Another VAMP first-timer, Frank DiPalermo.